tutorial, I would like to show you how to work the Italian bind-off. The Italian bind-off matches exactly the Italian cast-on. It produces this beautiful rib pattern that starts basically from nowhere and looks amazing from both sides. And how you end your project with the Italian bind-off, I'm going to show you now. Actually, all you need is your tapestry needle and 2 DPNs. I actually use 2 different colors if you have, because it's very easy for me then to see which needle I'm working. But I'm going to show it to you in detail. I finished my pattern row. I'm actually working over an odd number of stitches. In this pattern, it's actually fisherman's rib. So what I'm actually doing is I'm preparing for the Italian bind-off. Remember when you did the Italian cast on, you're knitting 3 rows in knit 1, slip 1 with yarn in front. I finished my pattern rows by now. So what I'm doing right now, I'm starting with a knit. I knit the first stitch and I slip as if to purl the purl stitch with the yarn in front, knit and slip with yarn in front, and knit and slip. And I'm actually going to do 2 setup rows in that manner. So knit the knits and slip the purls on each row. I'm going to fast forward a little bit to the end of the row. Okay, last knit stitch is done. I'm going to turn my work and I'm going to repeat the same process. Slip the purls with yarn in front and knit the knits. First stitch is a purl. Remember, we're working on an odd number of stitches. Slip the purl, knit the knits, slip the purls, knit the knits, slip the purl, and knit the knits. And I'm going to meet you on the other side of the row. Okay, I'm almost done with the second setup row for our Italian bind-off. Last stitches, slip the purl, knit the knit, and slip the purl. So now we're done with knitting so far. Now we're going to bind off in Kitchener stitch, and therefore we have to measure our yarn 3 times the size, the width of our project. Just around this. I'm just gonna cut the yarn so we don't run out of yarn. We have enough yarn. And now I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with my 2 different DPNs. For now, I'm going to separate the knit stitches from the purl stitches. That actually makes it quite easy to see which stitch I'm working. And without further ado, let's start. First stitch is a knit stitch, so I'm going to use the gray needle for the knit stitches and the dark needle for the purl stitches. And I'm going to start like this, hold the 2 needles parallel, pick up a knit stitch, pick up a purl, and now I'm going to alternate the stitches. Knit stitch with gray, a dark needle to purl, knit and purl, knit stitch, purl stitch, knit stitch and purl and so on. And after a while you get actually kind of quick with this. And I'll show you, actually this gives me a lot, basically, because Kitchener stitch is like knitting two sides together. You probably did it in a toe-up sock, in a top-down sock already, when you have to Kitchener stitch the toe of a sock. And we're basically doing the same thing in this Italian bind-off. So I'm taking all my stitches on two separate needles. The purl stitches on the black needle. Actually, you can use the same color. I sometimes find it easier to see where I'm at. Okay, put my knitting needle aside. And now you see, these are all my knit stitches and these are all my purl stitches. And in between is actually the little tube created by the same way by the Italian cast on, and as you see now as well in the Italian bind off. I'm going to use my tapestry needle, pull the yarn through, and now here we go. The first two stitches on both needles are going to be the setup stitches. I'm going with my inside my needle as if to purl, as if to purl. Of course I have to come from this side, as if to purl, pull the yarn through, and on the back needle, on the black needle, I'm going to insert the needle as if to knit. So now both stitches are secured, so they won't come off. And now we're starting the knit stitch. Insert needle knitwise. Take the stitch off the needle. Remember, every time you take off a stitch, you have to work it twice. So I have to secure the stitch again, the next stitch, go through as if to purl, pull yarn through. On the back needle, put the yarn behind, I go as if to purl. So a second time I work this stitch, I can slide it off the needle. I have to secure the next back stitch as if to knit. And on the front needle, I'll insert needle as if to knit, and I can take the stitch off the needle. I have to secure the next stitch on the front needle as if to purl, and I'll purl and enter as if to purl on the back needle, so I can take off my stitch, the purl stitch. Take it off the needle and secure the next stitch as if to knit. So basically, on the front needle are your knit stitches, and you secure them as if to purl, take them off as if to knit. And on the back needle, it's the opposite, it's a purl stitch. So you secure the stitch as if to knit, and you take off the stitch as if to purl. Okay, I secured that stitch as if to knit, the back stitch, and the next stitch in front is a knit stitch, and I can take it off as if to knit. Next stitch on my needle, the front needle, the knit stitch, I secure it because it hasn't been worked yet. I secure it as if to purl, pull yarn through. On the back needle, you enter needle as if to purl, and you take it off because you already worked the stitch twice. Now you secure the stitch as if to knit, and on the front needle as if to knit, and you take the stitch off. So basically you work 2 purl stitches or 2 purl maneuvers and 2 knit maneuvers. So take off the stitch, secure as if to purl, purl, second time purl, but now we're ready to take off the stitch because we worked it twice. And now we have to secure the next stitch on the back needle as if to knit. Knit stitch, insert as if to knit. Work that stitch twice as well. Take it off the needle, pull yarn slightly, don't pull it too tight because you don't want to pull in the bind off edge. We have to secure that next stitch on the front needle as if to purl and take the stitch off the needle. Secure as if to knit. Pull yarn through, the stitch off the needle, secure as if to knit, and on front needle knit and take off and secure it as if to purl, take off the stitch, secure as if to knit, pull yarn through and as if to knit, and you can take off the front stitch. Secure as if to purl on the back side, take off the stitch, secure next stitch as if to knit. So you can basically remember the front stitch is a knit stitch, on the back we have the purls, so we have to work them in the opposite way. So we secure the purl stitch with a knit stitch and the knit stitch with a purl stitch. We secured the purl stitch, so now secure the knit stitch, purl and purl, take off the stitch, secure the purl stitch with the knit, and next knit takes off the knit stitch on the light needle, on the front needle. Secure the knit with the purl, take off, and secure with a knit stitch and knit and take off the front stitch and secure, purl, take off. And as you see, it's like it's getting like a mantra all of a sudden, like 2 times the purl, 2 times the knit, and every other time you take off a stitch. So this is the purl stitch, I take it off the needle, secure it once more, take off the next stitch. So we're alternating the knits and the purls. Secure the knit stitch with the purl takes off the stitch on the back needle and secure it and take it off. And sometimes when you forget, when you get distracted and you don't know where you are, you always check your stitches, and I can see this stitch, the front stitch, hasn't been worked yet, so I can't take it off. I must secure it. And I do it right now, so I have to enter as if to purl. Oops, I created a yarn over it. And now I purl the stitch on the back needle and I can take it off. Same thing again, secure. And when you get the hang of it, It's actually quite fast, but it's like all new things, it has to become muscle memory. Next stitch, secured the knit stitch by a purl. Purl, take off the stitch. Next stitch, a knit. A knit to secure is a knit. And the knit stitch just to take off the front stitch. Pull loosely tight. Secure a purl. And the purl takes off the purl stitch. Here you go. And we secure it, and we almost reached the end of our row. The knit stitch. I'm going to show you how you finish the last stitch. Okay, we have a purl to secure the knit stitch, the purl to take off the purl. Now we actually can take off this needle, take it away. And this is now the last stitch on the needle. Usually I would have another stitch on the back needle and I would secure this stitch. I'm going to mimic that maneuver. I'm just going to pick up a strand from the edge with my needle and go through that loop as if to knit, just to secure the last stitch on the last needle, as if to knit. Oops. I do it once more. I'm going to through the loop at the edge, as if to knit. And now I'm ready to take off the last stitch. Insert my needle as if to knit, pull it through, and take off my needle. Okay, and there you have it. Now it's actually the same. Can you see it? It's really beautiful, where it looks amazing from both sides, and it's very elastic. So you can even use it on a sock or whatever project, anything that basically works from the top down. Now we just need to secure and weave in the ends. I usually do it like this. I go through one edge stitch like this to secure it, and then I take the tip of my needle and I'm going to insert it right between inside this little tube that we created. And I'm just going to move my needle all the way through that little tube. As you can see, it's quite easy. And in the case for our pockets for the gentleman blazer, it's actually quite cool because I show you what happens. I pull it through. And it kind of plumps up the edge, so it looks really neat and beautiful in the project. So I think, and I hope it was pretty helpful to you, and you will use it on your next project. Or try it for your next swatch. If you want to gain some confidence, just use it on your next swatch.